Today on the podcast, I had Micah Johnson. Micah statistically died at age 34. What? What does that mean? Well, he defied the odds. He grew up in a Y2K cult in northern Florida. And in this episode, he shares his journey of escaping that trauma to trying to become a professional golfer and now sharing everything he's learned about his own experience into personal development. That's right. If you are a growth mindset individual, if you want to reach new heights, if you want to become fully in touch with yourself, all of your feelings, all of your thoughts, to propel you into a different level of fulfillment, purpose, happiness, and success, this episode is for you. Also, if you're into golf or you're just a casual golfer, you're going to love the analogies that Micah uses as he tried to become a PGA professional and now applies to life and personal development. So without further ado, Mr. Micah Johnson. Welcome to the Real Freedom Podcast with your host, Ryan Weimer. Today, I've got Micah Johnson with me. Micah, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I am doing fantastic because I'm talking to you. This subject of personal development, inward reflection, evolving as a human, as a person, growing. We're going to dive real deep into that today. And on this podcast, we always start out with what was your most beautiful failure to date?
Okay. Not making the PGA Tour, hands down. My favorite one so far.
Not making the PGA. Okay, that's a pretty high ceiling, right?
Yeah, right? Like not getting there. I spent 3 years of my life absolutely dedicated with everything that I had. And I got serious about it. I had a top 100 swing coach, a mental coach, a fitness trainer. I had a real estate business at the time and as a realtor, and it was funding me to live my absolute dream. And I got 3 years in. If anybody wonders, it takes 10 years and $1 million minimum to become a professional athlete. Just be prepared for that because you need to play the game long enough. That's what it taught me. The level of mastery that it takes. The first few years are technical. The next ones are mental. That's what separates everybody that you see do whatever they do on the weekends. Because I even printed off the stats. I had everything I needed to know. What do I got to do to play? What do I got to do to be there? And I didn't make it. I'll never give it up. Now, I won't. It's not that I'm trying to play on the PGA. The U.S. Open's always available, right? That's where my dream shifted to. Like, you can always qualify, and there's different ones. But yeah, man, it taught me so much about life itself and just the nature of it and how one of my favorite lessons. And if you watch professional golf, the person who wins every major is the one who slows down the most on Sunday. Their walk is very intentional. What they do, nothing's out of order. They're not in a rush. They're not in a hurry. No matter what, I got to hit all these shots. And I know I can hit them all. I've hit them all before, but I just got to hit them again. And I'll do it for 18 holes and then I'll be done. The guy who does that wins. It is way harder to do it real time, right? And that's where I kind of gone long, but my mental coach, the performance coach I was working with, he helped me realize, whoa, this is way bigger than golf. This has to do with your real estate business, your life, way outside of what we're talking about. And that's where it's my most beautiful failure. Just, it taught me so much.
So I love that it was golf because golf is such a mental game. I mean, you're talking about fractions of an angle difference on anything, right? Your club speed, your club head contact with the ball, your aim point, like everything is going on. A lot of it's muscle memory and that's just like the physical part. And then the mental part about like you got to be out there for almost 5 hours if you're playing seriously every time. And I know that there's a lot of people listening. Right. Yeah. But I know there's a lot of people listening to this that it's relatable to because I'm a casual golfer and I'm like, man, I don't know how these guys do that. I don't know how they focus for that, like the mental strength that it takes. It's a perfect metaphor for personal development, really. And so 100%. I'm guessing that was kind of your segue of where you're like, I can take this further than just golf.
Yep, for sure, man. And that coach, I didn't even know personal development coaching was a thing. Like, I didn't even know any of that was real with just the story I learned about my life since I tried to play professional golf that we'll dig into. But yeah, it made me realize, oh my God, I can be one of these. I can do this kind of stuff for people. Like you can actually learn it yourself and then pass it along and people pay you for it. Wow. Right. I guess powerful. And
Yeah.
I love being in that space.
How good were you at your peak?
Good. And is the thing that wasn't good. I realize it now. If you would have asked me back then, I would have never said I was that good. I
Yeah.
was really good. But right here, there was just these few pieces that were missing where I was convincing myself I wasn't good. And I look for this currently in my life. I identified it then. Am I beating myself up to try to create a result? Because you can be hard on you and get results. However, what you create is this cycle of destruction. You'll never enjoy your result. You'll tell yourself it's not good enough. Because it can't be in order for you to do it again. Right. So golf, you got to think happy thoughts, man. Like
Yeah.
it's not fucking, you can't convince yourself you're terrible and then go play. You will play terrible. It's Jack Nicklaus says it. The best say this right before you hit the shot, you have it perfectly pictured in your mind. You've seen it do it already. You're just letting your body make it real. And that's how literally mental it is. And even a casual golfer, if you go to the course and don't even give a shit about fundamentals, but before every shot, intentionally picture exactly where you want it to go. If you got a really clear imagination, picture exactly what you want it to do. Just see it all in your head and then stand over the ball and swing. Now, I know it sounds simple. It is super simple. It's not easy to do, but that is the essence of it, especially if you keep returning to it. You're literally picturing this thing and then letting it do it. Yeah, it's a
So,
lot.
no, I love that you're going into the inner workings of that because I'm not gonna lie, the worst person to play with on a golf course is the guy that like he shoots par like one over and he's like, yeah, but I three putted the last hole or something, and it's like, yeah, dude, it's never gonna be good enough, right? You're always gonna leave a shot out there. You're always gonna like hit it behind a tree and like there's always going to be shots out there. And if you're in this constant state of like almost beating yourself up, it doesn't serve you, especially in a game so fragile and delicate as golf. Talk to me about like people that you played with and maybe some of your own. I don't want to call them demons, but like you hit a bad shot. How do you mentally reframe, or you make a bad business decision? You have something bad happen to you in life. How do you reframe in a matter of just a couple minutes and get back to that
Mm,
happy place?
radical responsibility. If you spend any time shoving it away, that's all more time you're going to have to spend getting over it. It just is. Golf is extremely brutal in the sense that you can't fake it. You can talk as much trash as you want. You can do all the things, but you got to put the ball down. You got to hit it and swing. And the ball doesn't do anything on its own. It only goes in the direction that you hit it because you did that, whether that's a shank, it doesn't matter. So if you're somebody that gets upset that you shank, what you got to do is get realistic on statistics. This is where I love that because it's really, you got to know what's actually happening. Bob Rotella wrote a really good book called Golf is Not the Game of Perfect. Oh, amazing book about golf and life. And it's just is. I hit it over there. Now I get to hit it again.
Right.
Whenever I'm playing with people, and I'll play with anybody, I don't care. I'll tell them if they'll hit a bad shot and want to complain. It's all about hitting the same ball twice, right? Like you got to hit the same ball again. You want to get good at golf, eliminate penalty strokes. You can break 80, just don't hit it in the water, don't hit it out of bounds, don't do anything that causes a penalty stroke and you'll break 80. That's how you
No.
do it. Like you don't go make more birdies. That's not the way you get good at golf. You make less mistakes. And most of your mistakes right there.
Yeah.
And
So what brought you into the game of golf, Micah? What was the catalyst that was like, you know what, I got to go for this and I got to see what this is all about?
well, I started playing golf when I was 12, and I was raised in a house where we played sports very young. I was playing baseball by the time I could walk, t-ball at 5, all the stuff, little league football going up, all through high school. However, golf and football were two that stuck. I got really good at both of those, and then I got a neck injury in my early 20s, And this was just about the time where launching wasn't illegal yet. Like Ed Reed was making a living just ripping people's heads off. Like, and we all loved it. But I would have been the guy who he was just absolutely destroying. And
Yeah.
it was like, I had gotten to, I'm 6'3". I'd gotten like 6'3", about 215 pounds. I was yoked. I could move about 4'7". But I was really smart on the field. Then I got hurt and I never gave up the dream. So that shifted me towards golf. Like I always had it in there. And then this is a crazy story. I went to Orlando to play in a scramble tournament with my dad. I live in Florida. We were going to Orlando. And we played in the tournament. It was terrible. But the hotel we were staying at, we asked the lady at the front desk, are there any golf courses close by? Because we didn't live in Orlando. And she goes, actually, there's this guy that works here. He's probably going to play after work. He always plays. Turns out this guy played on the senior tour and he was like 3 under through 4 holes. And I'm just like, who are you? Like, who are you? What are you doing working at a hotel? I just dug into this guy's story and it was a wild story about golf. But he told me, he's like, if you wanted to, you got it. You got it. I've been there. I know all the folks. If you want to do this, you're there. Go. And that was like my real estate business was going. Everything was like right on time in life. I got chill bumps thinking about it, where the right thing at the right time showed up. And it's funny how it turned into a failure. But it was that. It was just all the confirmation. I had just all these things lined up. And I went after it, man.
Yeah. I love that you went for it. I think most people, because of that fear of failure, right? They never actually go for something and give it their all because they don't want to fall short. And so it's actually even interesting that you deem not making the PGA a failure when maybe the whole point of this thing was to see how
Mm.
far you could push yourself mentally.
I would definitely see it from that angle now. Like
Yeah.
it was so fascinating. It still is because I tell people it taught me what I know today. I learned so much about life and about myself because as what it made me do is start digging into why is your mental game weak in this area? Why? And this is a funny thing about failure. So if you don't mind failure, there's a caveat to that, right? I don't mind failure. I've thrown it in the ring my whole life. That is by my nature. I was literally this one time, I had never ridden a bull before in my life, right? I grew up in the country. We rodeoed ever. I'd never done it. I convinced this guy to sponsor me and I started riding in rodeos in less than a month. I
Oh my
just like,
gosh.
this is a dangerous sport. I got stomped, collapsed a lung, spent a night in a hospital in a trauma unit. That was like the second time I really tasted death's door, where I was like, all right, I may have done it. Like I can't breathe, my shit's fucked. Like, oh, okay, deep breath, let's go, work my way out. But that's where what I realized though, if you're gonna fail, I kept beating myself up to move forward. That part's not helpful, right? It's not that I would never fail again. I just kept beating myself up over and over. And I still look for that in my own life now because I'm not going to stop. I think every entrepreneur hits it one day. This point where you realize I'm not going to stop. I don't need to worry about stopping anymore. What I need to worry about probably is going way too fast. That's
Mm.
probably what I need to worry about now because it's you. I think that's what failure's done. I got 4 businesses failed, right? One of my favorite companies I started was a professional golf tour while I was trying to play professional golf. Like I saw this need in this little niche and it would work still so well, but it's still not the right time to do it. But it's like, oh, interesting, right? But each little one just moves you forward and moves you forward. And I think they're important. And it's almost perfect in a way, really. I put a post up about this where you didn't stop trying to walk because you fell down. And we didn't have to convince you. You were truly just present at that point in your life. You weren't like retaining stuff. You're just seeing life through your eyes. And each time you fell down, like I've got a 9-year-old and 11-year-old, they never cried about it. They didn't like cry about falling down. They cried if they like busted their shit up on the way down, but not just actually falling down. They would just get back up and do it again. I was like, oh, there it is. You don't need to get upset. It's fine to look at what happened, right? Was it a bonehead move? Maybe. Right? Should I pull 3 wood there? 2 down, 1 ball left in the bag? Probably not. Probably should not have tried that. But doesn't matter. right? In the end, I'm going to try again tomorrow. And that's failure doesn't win unless you quit trying.
Yeah,
Like
I,
that's
I
when it
love
wins.
I love that you referenced back to, like this childlike innocence where it's very noticeable that how we cope with failure at a young age, where we have no preconceived notions of anything. We don't even know how we're supposed to feel. Things just
Mm,
happen and we just are. And then fast forward to later in life when how we cope is like a learned thing, right? And
yep.
it's like about this perception of how do I feel about myself and how are others going to perceive this failure. And um, one thing you were talking about there as you became a bull rider overnight, essentially, you said that was a second time you knocked on death's door. What was the first time, and what is that background and more of your story?
I was raised in a Y2K cult. I statistically died at the age of 34. I work with a therapist who works with people who come from extreme belief systems. The issue with extreme belief systems is they come preloaded with some pretty negative mindsets. The one being, I was completely broken. This is why I didn't make golf, and this is why it's my favorite failure, because it's one of the things that showed me, and my wife really helped me understand it now, is I'm not broken. It's not broken. The ball's not going in the woods because I'm broken or anything's broken. I did something that makes it go in the woods. What if I was trying to do that and it did it? I'd be happy about it, right? Like
Right.
it's just this reality of what you're trying to do. And in those times, I went through a very extreme experience at age 15 where my dad left the cult. And when he leaves, the rules were you disassociate. They cannot talk to you. You're now out. That's a dark period of life. That was some times where just I almost cashed in on that 34 statistic. Now I didn't know I statistically died at 34, and all that means is if you take my life experiences and you add them up, the majority of the time you die at the age of 34, either due to a self-induced death, either on purpose or not on purpose. You could just drink a lot. I could be addicted to something. I've gone through the addiction of narcotics. I had a bad neck injury and arm injury that they just gave me a bunch of pills for. And it was wrecked my life, made things really hard for a really long time. So a doctor that helped me out of it. Right. So it's like I started to see in my life those other times. Like, wow, okay. I'm grateful to see how close I really was, not even realizing it, that you just messing with the things that would do it. But yeah, just drifting through that period. Again, I think I'm the luckiest guy alive. I still don't change that, but that's just been perspective on reflecting on it. Because in that, when I got told, hey man, you died at 34, I turned 39 this year. Fuck yeah, I'm free. Like that was
Yeah.
the rule. It said survive till 34 and then you win. Deal. I win. I win now. Now I don't like I can lay it all down. None of it's for me. And this is where personal development really started to kick in for me, was in that golf period when all of a sudden these stories started to just unwind of, that doesn't make any sense. I remember the night in it was in 2016. I was in my room. I was on my bed and I was watching a TV show, and it was Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos, season 1, episode 1. And he starts to just say these things. He like fractured this, put a little crack in the ceiling I had in my head that was from these belief systems. And I'll explain that part in a second. But then all of a sudden he just brings it crashing down with, he explained a light year in a way where I was open to hearing it for the first time. Right. And I love math. I love science. And sitting
Yeah.
there talking about light year, and it's like, you don't even know how fast light's going. Like if you hold a beam of light above the earth, let it go 7.5 times that fast. Mind boggling, right? Well, that fast every second, every day for a year. And we can measure it and do all this stuff now. The hinging belief was the earth was 6,000 years old in this belief system I was in. Immediately, that was not true. Immediately, the moment I could see that, I was just like, oh. And that's the one. If that one's not true, they all fall apart. And it was just like this, whoa, dude, like detached from just floating in space. Like they cut the cord. I see everything floating, but I can't reconnect it, and I don't even fucking want to. Just really a really wild, like everything I've ever known, it's not real. And I didn't even know I was from a Y2K cult yet. There was literally a 5 year gap. And the one I was in was just as much a cult. Like what I learned was I never left. I just bounced along the edges in different ones. Super helpful. That was so helpful to realize because then it helped me put in order of, now I get it. Now I get how these stories are told because that's what really transition as in that time of coming out, you start to understand just what exactly they were saying, but they're putting their little slant on it, right? There's still ancient truths buried in there that you just had to pull all these wild stories off of. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting that you had like kind of this epiphany moment. And, there's people that are religious, divine intervention. There's people that believe that's not so much the case and it's coincidental. Like, what do you attribute this like epiphany type life-changing moment to, where
Mm.
you're like in that second you're like challenging everything you've ever known? Because I think that's such a hard thing for people to like imagine that something like that could happen. Usually you hear of people that are like, well, one day I started thinking about this and then like it took me 10 years to really like spin the wheels to even comprehend what I was being challenged about myself, right?
Mm.
What do you think like culminated to that kind of moment? What do you attribute that to?
At Offer Now Idaho, we're looking to hire A players to run our organization and help us grow our business.
Absolutely. And it's not going to be easy, but what in life is? You can choose your hard, you can choose to be poor, you can choose to be rich. They're both hard. Would you rather work for a company that has your best interests in mind and wants to push you to be the best version of yourself? Where you actually can give back to the community and have a tangible impact in people's lives? Our motto is providing freedom to our team members, our community, and ourselves through real estate.
The whole reason Offer Now Idaho was created, I was a mechanical engineer, and I was just a cog in the wheel. At the end of the day, I was just a number. I got laid off once. I got passed up for a promotion multiple times, even though I was already doing half of the role plus my own. I wanted to be able to control my own destiny and impact others around me without having the handcuffs of a corporation and deal with corporate politics. Getting passed up for that promotion, already doing the work, I remember just feeling, am I really going to do this for the next 30 years of my life? I need to start taking control now. I need to go start something. I need to go build something that will attract other like-minded people that are seeking that. The ability to work remote, right? That want to be able to have an unlimited ceiling on what they can earn. And the results that they get have a direct impact on what they get compensated. You can't get that in a corporate job. Right now, we have a $3,000 referral program. If you know somebody that's looking for a new role, we will pay you $3,000 once that person is hired by us and they hit their 90-day mark. So if you know of anybody that's looking for a new job or looking to change their life, shoot me a DM at RealRyanWeimer on Instagram.
Let's get it.
Separation. Reality was at that time, I had moved away from about 45 minutes away from the group that I would go to. And then so I quit going every weekend also. So now I had like this separation of thought. Man, I said I love math, I love science. I just use these wild arguments that I was taught on how to combat them, to make what I was being told. Honestly, I love the Bible. I look back on it. Like I don't hold any ill grudges toward it. I love ancient literature, wisdom literature. I've read a lot of it. I read it in its own language. I studied it. It was all I was allowed to read for a long time. So what I started to see was the things that were said without the slant, without the, oh, but it means this. When the peace that passes on all understanding, you get all that when you just let go of everything you've told you that bothers you. Right. And in this system, all this stuff bothers us. There's all these rules and this and this and this and this, and we got to do this. So
Right.
now I'm walking through life with this filter where if only life looks like this, I'm happy. Life's never going to be happy at all. And it's terrible.
Right.
The filters I say it has to be are catastrophe. Key ingredient in those systems is fear. Right. And there's a reason why you hear about you're either walking by faith or you're running in fear. Those cannot be the same. And fear is literally just faith and worry and evil. It is the shadow of faith. That is all fear is. So like when you see it, it's an opportunity to believe now. It shouldn't scare you. It may scare you, but that's an indicator. Oh, hold on. That's okay. Because that's what I literally use to get through life on a daily basis. Because man, I'm full of fear. There was tons of massive amounts of fear just pushed into me my whole life about the world ending and all this shit and all that. And now it's like, okay, none of that's real. And I'm 8 years out. And it's still like, wow, all this just subconscious stuff where now each time it shows up, way less often. And the moment it shows up, oh, I just got to let that go. Like,
Yeah.
no big deal. Right.
I can imagine, especially like being a part of something like that in your very like formative years, as an adolescent, and then a teenager, and then a young adult. Like those are very crucial times when, holy crap, you're not really in contact with your dad much, and then you're also being, I guess, brainwashed to some degree by others around you at a very pivotal moment in life. I can imagine that takes quite a lot of effort and critical alone time thinking of undoing. Was that really what got you into personal development and like really gave you the passion to go into golf and to like really kind of figure out who your new identity is?
Yeah, after that Neil deGrasse Tyson episode and all that, when I realized this isn't true, then I didn't have to believe I was broken anymore. So this 30-year bondage of brokenness, like just that you cannot believe you're broken and not be broken. That's the secret about it. If you can be convinced you're broken and only something outside of you can fix you, you're fucked. Like you've given up all your power. You've lost it all. And then I didn't have that. And when I didn't believe I was broken, that's when personal development starts really like, how deep can I take this? What's really possible here when you start to spend intentional time developing yourself? And I call it using life as practice. Every day, life will give you exactly what you need to practice with. Whether you're driving or it could be a big deal or a small deal. Now, Michael Singer, one of my favorite teachers, he says you practice with the small stuff. Like if you get a red light, it doesn't matter. If it bothers you, deep breath. This is your chance to learn how to let go of that energy. Learn how to let go of all that. It's okay. You don't have to tell yourself the story of how annoying this light is and all this stuff. Like we don't have to. Just chill out. It's a chance to take a break. Enjoy 30 seconds of your life, right? You can also do that kind of stuff. So it was really like, wow, it was starting to show me that I could unthink or alter think all these things. Well, one of the practices that my first coach, his name was Jimmy, that we worked on was, we just called it do the opposite. Whatever your brain tells, like right now, man, your brain is trained to keep you down. And this was 2016. So what I need you to do is whatever it tells you, do the opposite. Just do the opposite. And it started to just unlock all these doors in life. Boom, 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 boom. Because once golf left, I worked with Jimmy for almost from 2016 to 2019. We spoke every 2 weeks, just very deep conversations where basically it's like, Mike, I don't have anything left to tell you. Like you graduate, not sure, like you literally have learned how to solve your life in real time, dealing with all your shit. Great job. On to the next thing. And that's what taught me techniques. And then from there, I got to apply it to. That's when, in 2019, that's when I met my wife. Actually, it was just after meeting her is when I got to the part where I started to want to tell people.
Yeah.
Right, where it wasn't such an internal move anymore. Because there were it took a number of years to solve it all, but yeah.
Yeah. I was curious. I think I was in 5th or 6th grade. I was pretty young at the time that, Y2K was about to happen. And I'm curious, just as somebody that doesn't know much about what a cult can be like, can you describe, like, was it just like a lot of, hey, the world's going to end here? Like what was being in a Y2K cult like? Like what did you guys discuss, and what was that experience?
The weirdest part of this is, one, I did not know it was a Y2K cult until 2021. And
wow, really?
That's the thing about being when you experience it every day, what you're able to consider normal. It's a human, it can be a weakness and a strength. We can just normalize our environment. This is just normal.
Right.
So the idea
So
that
you weren't like labeling it. Like it wasn't
No,
labeled. Right. It was just like a
I was
normal
2.
life.
I was
Yeah.
2 when we moved there. I was 2 years old, 1988. So from 2, obvious, and then in the mid 90s, the lady that cranked it up. So what cult life was like? It wasn't like we all didn't have to wear clothes. We and like do weird stuff. We participated in life, like be in the world but not of the world. That was like a thing. However, behind the scenes, in this little room, in this tiny middle of nowhere place that we all moved there from Tampa, and that's where in 2021, this lady who was in the group, I sought her out to understand what the fuck. Tell
Yeah.
me, tell me the story. And I
Yeah.
got to hear about, it was these 5 or 6 families. We were in this already kind of fringe Christian movement in Tampa, which that's a key because I went and studied how people end up in cults. Like I really wanted to know why my mom and dad did that.
Yeah.
And she was explaining what happened. This old lady came in. She said, this elderly lady, I shouldn't say it that way. This elderly lady came in and started saying that she had this special knowledge, right? But that was already normal in this society that they were in. Right? That's where it's like you fringe, and then you can get crazy. It's
Sure.
not just, you don't just dive off into wild. That's not the way
Right.
it works. So she's explaining to me how we ended up in the woods. In the 3 years preceding that, my grandfather died, who was like an anchor family member, just very important person. And my parents lost their house to foreclosure and an adjustable rate mortgage they didn't understand. And they were in their early 20s, right? We're talking about like young or mid 20s. These are not, I was homeless at that point in my life. We haven't got to that part of the story yet, but I was able to look at them in a way and realize, oh, damn, I get it now. So you have all these terrible things happening to you. And then you get this chance to say, hey, if we go follow this lady, she's got this knowledge in this place that's away from all of our problems. Boom. That's how you end up way out in the middle of nowhere, just doing nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it was, doing nothing. There was nothing around. My friends were, a mile, 2 miles away down different driveways, but it let me just wander in the woods all day, every day, going fishing, going hunting, going on more adventures you know what to do with. I had infinite amount of forts built on different trails. I would literally leave. I would be up at sunrise and I would not come back until dark. And I would have just stuff stored around. My parents learned not to even worry. I would just do my own thing and come in and out. And that's where, again, I'm so glad I was young then. That little boy, he didn't know. And that's perfect. He didn't need to know. He didn't need to know. And I'm so grateful I didn't find out till later because I didn't need to know until I needed to know. Right? That information at the wrong time could have been damaging. Like real, who knows? Like you never know what you do. And that's, again, getting into how people get into them. What do you do when the extreme happens? And what do you do when a couple extreme happens close by? That's when you're in a lot of danger. Your mind, your body, everything is just firing off and you will seek relief. Like here's a good personal development test if you're dealing with hard things. Does the feeling make me just want to seek relief, or is it something that I can actually relieve myself of? Right? Am I trying to run away from it? Because if you're just trying to run away from it, stand up longer. If it's something you can actually put down, you can be honest with yourself and put it down. Like, what is it? Is it what's causing all of it? Deal with it. A lot of times we go for relief. We just want to make it stop. What makes it stop today? I'll just quit. I'll just do this. I'll just do that.
Yeah.
And
when you sought out this lady, did you get the answers you were looking for? Like, did it help you get closure?
Well, it didn't. I didn't realize I was looking for.
Okay.
Right, which is a weird part. So right back here on this shelf right there, those are my journals, and I have this like 4 weeks amount of time written down. I was working with my therapist, and I didn't feel like I was from anywhere. Like I don't live where I'm from. I live in St. Augustine. I haven't lived. I don't feel like I've ever had a home actually, which is a bizarre feeling because I was just never from there. Right, like this little town we moved into. People that live there a long time. Like at this point in time in life, you didn't just wander into there. That's really crazy. So even though I was like from there, I didn't feel from there. I always felt like a part and in these different ways. So I really started to get this feeling like, where am I from? Where am I from? So I went back home. And I grew up in this mobile home. It's gone now. It's just a tie down strap in the middle of the woods. But there was this feeling I found on that property where what I was looking for was the last version of me where I was free. That's what I was looking for. And that's what home is, right? Ultimately, homes where we're free. Like at home, you get to be as silly or as goofy. You get to be you. If you can't be you at home, then you're not at home. That's how you know, right? Like it's that special place. And I went there and I even had this, I'll call it a vision, but I just saw in my head, I saw myself run by as a little boy because I'm just standing where I was. And I saw him smile at me and run off, almost just like I did when my dad's friends were there, right? Run by, hey man, what's up, Mr. Danny? Goofing off, running away, right? But I saw it doing it to me and I was like, whoa, there he is. That's who I was looking for. Why was he so free? He didn't know any of this stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So after knowing it, what do you deal with it? How do I return back to that? Because at that, dude, I was unstoppable. I loved me then. And that's where, woof. I remember one of the hardest practices that I had to go through with my first coach was go back to all the versions of you that you were upset with yourself and give them a hug and learn how to let them go. Because the whole point's just survival, right? Like as long as you're still alive, you're winning. You get to control the experience, so learn how to make it better. But as long as you're alive, you're winning. And I'm still alive. And so walking back, and that's been this big loop to where I am today, was just getting back to that little boy, seeing that, that's right. That's who he was. That's how you can go about life. And you can do it in a way now where you accept it. It's okay. If you don't, what else is there, right? The reality, we were talking about light earlier. I love science. I heard a good quote a couple weeks ago. Physicists are the new preachers. And it's a powerful quote because you dig into quantum physics, man, we're all just vibrations. Like it's proven, we got it documented, and we just experiencing it at different frequencies. So if that's the case, why am I so bothered by such random stuff?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and there's a moment happening everywhere in the universe. There's storms raging on Jupiter. There's there's just crazy stuff going on right now. And all I can see is this one thing. And I'm like deciding if I like it or not. What is my problem? What am I doing? I don't want to do that. Right. Like really digging in. And that's where the two most important personal development questions, who are you? What's actually happening? Those are two you have to answer. Learning how to answer those. Finding it's more than one technique. It's not one teacher that'll teach you. And that's what I've learned. I've dedicated now 8 years and I don't stop, man. I spend most of my time thinking about this. I call it preparation. To do my talks, to do my classes. I spent my whole life walking through the woods just thinking. And now I spend a lot of my day going on long walks, sorting shit out in my head, writing my talks out, practicing. It's beautiful. It is this true reconnection. The only thing now I'm bringing out is I want a house with about 1,000 acres on it so I can wander around like for real, get back to my real distances I like to go when I wander around. Waiting on that to happen, but that'll come out.
So I'll bring it full circle here, but I have a really burning question that I want to ask you because on one hand, people that experience trauma, that pain, although terrible in the moment, is also like the impetus for them to seek a greater understanding of themselves, like a springboard, basically.
Yep.
Whereas people that never go through a trauma or maybe have less pain, they're more comfortable. There's more of a resistance to getting to that vulnerable place to do an honest self-assessment. Who are you? What do you want to be? What's your purpose? Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with yourself? So I'm curious, with all the people that you've worked with, and you clearly have a very, very deep and authentic understanding of yourself, who is more likely to go on this journey and develop personally? Like, is it the person that has experienced a lot of trauma, or is it your average person that maybe doesn't have a ton of trauma to deal with, and they might not really feel a need to start or understand themselves?
That is a great question. Honestly, I'm kind of a cheap shot in it, but it's a good mixture of both.
Yeah.
Right. Especially in the end, no matter what, right? no matter what, we're all victims of life. None of us asked to be here. We are literally the existence of other people's choices. That's it. How you get delivered into the world, right? I say it this way: we're all equally human. Our experiences are far from equal. And it's impossible. No one could ever have the same one. So you got to get square, no matter what. You got to get square with your parents. And if you were given two people who thought this way and set you up, motherfucker, let me give you a hug. I love you. That's amazing. Doesn't mean you don't have work to do, because you are a human being just like the rest of us. In our first session together, I'm going to introduce you to that same voice in your head that I have and show you how it's torturing you, because it doesn't give a shit if you got trauma or not. It's a relentless factor. Because a lot of people, you said this, when something gets installed in your life with pain, pain is what removes it. If you don't have the guts to walk through that door and just scratch that wound open so that you can get a scar there, you won't do well. You just won't. And we live in a shock and awe society. We've been like everything about marketing and movies and everything, like as almost 40-year-old, we've been shock and awe to death. Everything is shock and awe. And that's where even in the religious environment I grew up in, the people with the harshest stories, right? Like everyone loves to hear about a bloodbath.
Of course.
You don't have to have a bloodbath. I do not recommend one. A lot of mine are self-inflicted now that I can see it, because I was convinced I had to have this testimony or this thing. It's not true. No matter what, if you have kids, you're going to be introduced to personal development, square in the face every day. Your children they challenge every belief that was ever instilled in you and you didn't know. When you find them just annoying you and they're doing something, well, you couldn't do that when I was well, we're not trying to do that, are we? Right? If it ever gets to well, you couldn't do that when I was a kid, then that's on you, buddy. That is not on your child. That's your shit. If you spray it on them, now we got some space to develop, right? Because we all have that. Everybody has something like to keep it. So no matter what, life's bringing you this opportunity, whether you got tons of trauma or no trauma. If what I'm learning is if you got a lot of trauma and you love to talk, where ability and desire mix, that's a potent recipe, because it'll allow you to pay for your life and fund. Like there's nothing wrong with making a lot of money. There's just not. And very well personally developed people do, because they realize, just another one of the tools in life that creates things that I need. And my attitude towards it is very important. It needs to be just like other things. It's like, you start to see how it all works together behind the scenes. And then that's where my real gift kicks in with coaching, is this, because I've had my life. And either way, if you've got a lot of trauma or no trauma, I've worked 25 different jobs, I think, just all these different weird little things that let me do this really weird stuff in life. And I'm also just someone who is empathetic. I feel energy. I care. I want to do the things. That's where I talk to people when I'm coaching you. Like, if you want to figure out what you want to do, where does ability and desire mix? Pay attention to that, right? It's you in the religious world, you hear about like God's calling on your life, or these different kind of concepts about what are you meant to do? What are you meant to do? In the mystery of it, pay attention to just the stuff you want to do. Like you can tell the difference in your heart when it's real intuition. I believe we all can do that, because at some point someone's like, I'm going to train myself to listen to that. Like that's what we all get to do, where you can train your intuition to really hear it and let it tell you. And when you do that, the stress kind of goes away, because it'll tell you each little thing you need to do. It kind of shows you what you want to do, right? It revealed to me real estate at one point when I switched from the medical field to working in real estate. Oh, wow, this is this opening door. I need to do this. Boom, shift, right? Even into golf. Oh, wow, this is this opening door. I need to do this. Boom, shift. And if that makes sense, that's kind of the skill of it. It just let you get yourself into it. Whatever you got, life's going to bring it. That's where they're called. Michael Singer calls them samskaras. It's not like this. And all that means is impression, this thing inside you where it's going to bother you, whether that's getting your food cold at a restaurant, right? Like how you handle that is everything. This is where it goes back to golf. Golf is the game of life. I've sold more houses on a golf course than I know what to do with. golf is an incredible place to build relationships because you get trap people for 4 to 5 hours. And we're just all together doing this thing. I found a lot of people I would never do business with because they cheated. And when I
Yeah.
learned about them in life, they cheated in business, they cheated in their family, they cheated in everything. Everything was about that. And then you'd find people that, they play it head up and they go about it a certain way. And then you got someone that does play it, but they just freak out all the time. Well, they freak out all the time in life too, right? It was literally this mirror of life itself. And it's like, wow, we all deal with this. That's why
Yeah.
it is a game. And that's where I fully believe you can piss it off. Like,
Yeah,
test
I was literally going to ask you that because I learn more about golfing with somebody than I do doing any other thing. Because in such a, not only are you spending quality time together, but you get to see how people handle good times and bad times at super speed, right? Like that feedback loop happens shot after shot after shot, and you just get to see how somebody deals with regular failure. Because let's be honest, just like you said, golf is about minimizing mistakes. It's not about making a bunch of birdies, right? Yep. So that some of the mistakes are going to happen. It's just how bad are those mistakes going to be, and how do you rebound? So I love that you said that.
Get excited about that weird shot you have to hit, because if you pull it off, you're a hero. Like, that's why I like them. If I get to do this, oh my God, they'll talk about this forever. That's so fun. It's another thing about professional golf. You're also an entertainer. That's why I like to speak. I learned about me like, oh, I got that part. I like that moment. Put me on stage. Give me I want the ball when there's 1 second left. I don't care about Michael. Pass it to me. Like, that's my mindset. You know what I mean? Again, it's, and then you get yourself aligned. Ooh, dude, it's a potent mix when you do it in a healthy way, where the way you go about building big things is good for you, because there's a lot of ways that's not good for you. And it's not that they don't work, but just because it works doesn't mean it's like good for you. Like, there's plenty of examples of this.
Yeah. And I was texting you this the other day, so I know you'll get a laugh out of revisiting this, but the golf analogy that I used. So we lost a lot of money on a deal recently, and it's been really, really hard financially, mentally, emotionally, right? All the above. The circumstances that led up to that, I'll talk about at a later date in detail. But the metaphor is everything else in our business is going fantastic, right? Like, so it'd be the equivalent of getting to the 17th hole and I'm scratch, right? I'm having the round of my life. And then on 18, I shoot like plus 10 because I hit it in the water 5 times. And that's such a relatable analogy for everybody. Like, everything is really going well, and there's this one thing that we're placing so much weight on, this little, sure, the magnitude of the outcome might be big. A plus 10 is a big score for one hole. Let's not get it twisted. But still, it's just a fraction of the overall picture of life. And we really have to, like, golf is just such a funny metaphor for that, because everybody gets that example when you say that.
It's so true, man. It is the chance. Like, that's the one thing that between golf and everything. I hate hole 18 because it means I got to stop. I love to play. I just want to swing again. I just fell in love with swinging. So just swing. Let me swing at something. And it's whatever happens that day, it is just practice for the next day. That's it. Today's practice for tomorrow. And even the example you're describing, you could technically call it trauma if you want to, right? We all, just because it didn't happen to me, there's a talk I give called Freeing Yourselves from the Things You Didn't Ask For to Live Your Full Potential Life, right? There are things that happen to people we didn't ask. True victims, truly. And it has a terrible effect and hard things that you go through. I've also learned in business that there are decisions that I make that put my body and mental states in worse conditions than when I was going through that other shit. So how is this not the same? I need to be able to learn through this too. And I need to actually deal better with it, because I can blame me, right? There's a big difference between blaming yourself and having radical responsibility. A big difference.
How do you know near the end of, I guess, your run up to trying to make the PGA, how did you know it was the right time to turn the page? Because I think if you're like a high driver, you're a go-getter, which you are, turning that page and almost starting a new beginning and a new version of yourself, to feel like some people are giving up. right?
Mhm.
You can have that glass half empty type of mindset, or you can have the glass half full. No, this was just the springboard to get me into the next thing, and that's what I'm really meant to do. How did you know that it was the right time though to turn that page?
Mm. Um, I heard General Patton's quote. Someone said it to me, which says, "Marines don't retreat; they just fight in a different direction." And I really like absorbed that in my body. I'm not in the military or anything, but I was like, I love that. Like, okay. And then I reflected on. I got serious with myself. What does turning the page look like? When you're trying, man, like it's everything. And so I realized no matter what, someday I'd have to stop. Like everybody's got to retire. And you see this professional athletes where they can't do what's next. They they
Right.
they get stuck in this position. And so I kind of just thought about if I couldn't do this, right? If I couldn't do this, what if I can get an accident? All kinds of things can happen where you don't get to play golf, super high level. What do I want to do? What is that next thing? What allows me to move forward? Do I believe there is another thing? And that excitement came back of, oh, I do. There is something to pull from this and move next. And I asked this pivotal question. Did you leave it all on the field? Did you give it everything you had? Yes. It didn't work out? No. Do you feel regret stopping? None at all. None. And there were times before that where when I asked that question, I said, no, I didn't leave it all yet. I got more. I think I got more. And that was really helpful to get to that point where I could say, yep, okay. And it's kind of goes along with that intuition. You know.
Yeah.
And if you believe in it, it'll open that next door. It'll just lead to the next thing. Heck, it's how it led to how we met. Literally, it led me to the events that we met at because
Yep.
all that did was open a door back into a whole new kind of real estate because I got started as a real estate agent. And this shifted me into working with Justin and working with a hedge fund, selling them 50 houses a month, right? Like, holy cow, this is not what I'm used to. And life's just elevating. Then became the VP of professional development. All of a sudden, life's just shooting me along this path for these companies. Like, wow, whoa, okay. And all I saw was if I did not do all that work in golf, I wouldn't be able to do these other things. It just taught me how to do it. The relentless nature of it all, where most of it lives in the little things, right? It's especially golf. Golf's not missing the 5 in. You want to you want to get good at golf. Well, there's a lot of ways, but it's 5 in where we lose a lot of strokes. I got a lot of people asking me, how can I shave strokes? Like eliminate mistakes. That means on the tee, don't hit driver. If you truly care about your score and not about what people think about you playing, don't hit driver. Be able to hit the same ball twice, right? If you can hit your driver or if you can hit your 7-iron 150 yards, hit it twice. That's 300. You're at the green. Or you're close to wherever, unless you're playing a big ass course, right? Like, but you can take these other clubs if you really care about score, and I can get you under. I can shoot your best score in a round. But if you went and tried to do it by yourself or with your friends, you won't let your brain do it. It doesn't make me look cool. This ain't what they do on Sunday. Bullshit. You have no idea what clubs they hit on Sunday. I'm telling you, most often it's not driver. I highly recommend watching ESPN Plus, where you can watch someone play a whole round. You want to watch good golf? Go watch a player play every shot all day. And do it on the Thursday, Friday rounds where they're still mixed with the leader will be with someone who could be last, where you're really getting to watch people, this group, go through what it's like to play a round of golf. And you will see clearly, one, you're way too hard on yourself. It's way easier than you think it is. Will you do the work? That's all it starts to land on. Will you go learn how to make all the putts 5 foot and in? Learn how to get your short game tidied up, right? Like most amateurs spend time on the range, wasting your time. It's like, yes, you have to learn how to swing the big clubs. But again, if you really want to score, when that's the difference, you want to get fucked up and just bang balls around, I am for it, okay? Yeah. I have my rounds where this is not about golf. We are here to have a great time. My back will be sore. I get it. Like I'm pulling driver on par 3s, baby. I don't care. We're just ripping the ball. And there are days where it's not like that, right? And that's like life itself too, but it's just knowing, right, what you're going out there for.
Yeah. Let me give you not an objection, but something that I see within some people on my own team, with people that I've talked to, and I know you and I come around this all the time. A lot of people in the entrepreneur space are actually really into self development and personal development because they know your mindset is your greatest advocate and your worst enemy in terms of business. How does somebody know or get to the point where they're like, yeah, I think that that's a good idea, if they don't know like what the possibilities are of what the benefit is, right? They haven't seen the light yet. They've seen other people talk about, your story, Micah, and my story, and all these just different things and people, and like I'm going to a conference, or I'm getting this energy and I'm feeling this from people, but I'm not totally sold that this is going to really help me, or like I don't know what I'm missing out on. I don't know what I don't know is probably a better way to describe it. What would you say to somebody like that that's stuck?
If you can even have that thought, you're on the right track, because it means you questioned it, right? It's all about, will you ask questions to just everything you were ever taught? And you're not looking to have bad answers. One thing I teach on, scientifically, humans aren't humans fully until 25. After 25, you're a fully developed human being. We make a lot of life-changing choices before 25 thinking we're adults, and no one's really saying that out loud. Like, hey, guys, like, you're really doing a lot of stuff that you're not even fully developed yet, and I'm just promise you, I don't mean that wrong. But then you go through life and you realize, wow, I know at 30 for me, life changed. I just was able to think differently. That's when my whole experience leaving. So if you're in that place, there's two things. You either have the ability to decide to get started before a major crisis hits, or life will bring the crisis that makes you decide to get going. Sadly, so often we wait for the crisis. It's a personal development skill to learn not to do that. Right? It is
100%.
a learned thing to start to see the signs ahead of time, because ultimately that's what they're doing. You see the signs. If it goes off, your spidey senses start tingling. Now that next move you make is everything. Do you decide to keep reading the book, or do you shut it down? That's not true for me, right? I resist. I shove this away.
Yeah,
If
the perfect analogy for that is obesity or weight loss, right? Like a lot of times people will wait until they have a heart attack, a stroke, something happens to them physically, like, oh wow, this is real. That's after, now they have all this excess fat and super high cholesterol and like all these other things that
Yep.
are now going to take them exponentially longer, and it's much harder now to reverse those habits because they've been ingrained for decades instead of just a couple years or whatever the case may be. But
And the
that
body
is
kept
so
it
true.
score, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to do it having now gone through it. Like everything leaves a scar, right? It does have its effect, where there's stuff I go through, I can't help it popping up. I know how to deal with it, but because the scar exists, it's going to flash in there. It's going to have like these different, whether it's a really hard anxiety feeling that I get, like, to really be clear on it, is I had to live this way every day, where if you failed, you died. Basically, the belief I grew up with, if you have any sin in your life you didn't say out loud, even if you don't know you have it and you die that night, you don't get to see your mom and dad anymore. That's what I was told every night. That is literally, you must be perfect. If you don't, you die. That is just the extreme version of the same kind of stuff, right? You don't have to be perfect. I could never be that. If I'm that, I don't get to learn from my mistakes. I only beat myself up for not being perfect. That's not helpful, right? It just wastes the whole experience. And if that person looks back on their life, it's already happening. Look at the other experiences. It adds up. You brought up a great physical one. It's like men's midlife crisis. There's a pandemic in men. I have a very, very big heart for men, in the sense that just because of my life statistic, there's a lot of guys, they didn't make it.
Yeah.
They didn't. They succumbed to life, and a lot of it's their own choices. Like, they didn't have my trauma yet. They're still dead too. And you look at their life and they put themselves, whether it's entrepreneurs and big business deals, and didn't understand it and shit fell apart. And now you got all this pressure on you where you will convince yourself. Debt's a good option. As someone who's seen that door, the weird thing about it is it seems like the best idea because you didn't just arrive at it. It takes you mentally destroy yourself to the point where I just need relief. Relief again. This makes it all stop forever. And that's all I want is for this to stop, right? And then boom, now you get devastating choices being made. And it's before you get there, how do we cut that off? Or even if you're there, I want you to see just, man, you can come back from that point. You're just on a feedback loop. There's things we can talk about because it's, as we all go do more, right, I'm in our 40s. I've had a pleasure speaking with a lot of business owners in my life, just in different jobs I've had, where there's a group that operate much differently than the lower age ones, where the way they even go about business feels destructive to the way I want to go about it. And even the way that the more negative psychologies get taught, that you can't have all this stuff in life. Like, it's like, you can only have this one dream, but at the cost of everything else. That's why we have midlife crisis. Why we have all these things is we convince ourselves it's not true. We can have it all. You truly can. You can have it all. You just do it slowly. You want it all right now. That's not the point, right? The point is living a daily life for as long as you can. Go, right? This is a statistic that messes with most people. Do you know the average age of a person when they make their most money?
I bet it's pretty old. Yeah.
50s, man. And you can't get on social media. And if you're not a millionaire by 25, you fucked your life up, right?
Yeah.
It's insanity. It's insanity what gets pushed, but it's all been, again, it's just professional marketing. Like, that's the reality that we've all been sold to. All this stuff has happened that keeps this certain thing going. And when you sidestep it and step outside of it and see like, oh, wow, I don't have to sacrifice myself to do all this. I don't need a business with 200 employees tomorrow. I just don't. It doesn't change anything from what I'm trying to do. That's personal development. And that's where I'm really happy in today's crowd. Like you said, entrepreneurs early in their businesses are adopting way more personal development. And that's what I like to coach entrepreneurs on is, hey, you can be happy and do all this. In the end, and this is something that is very interesting. No matter what we all really want is endless love, joy, and peace. Truly, you strip it down to what we actually want, whether that's this business that we're having or this goal or whatever it is, that thing creates for us love, joy, and peace. That's what it does, and that's okay. However, when we only allow outside stuff to do it, we now deny the reality that it's just always there. You go back to your childhood, there was endless love, joy, and peace. You just participated to participate. It's just the love of doing. It's wild to watch. Getting back to that point, because I think that's man's greatest challenge, is understanding if I got this wild theory on the fall of man story of where if you study Adam's fall and then the goal to come back, it's literally a human going through puberty and life. There's this period where you don't even know you're naked. You don't even care. You're just living. There's all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, one day, you just notice these things about yourself. All of a sudden, you can think about you. And you've never done that before. That's puberty. And then now stack on a bunch of experience in the formative year, all this stuff, like we're rushing it out. And now we see how long our journey back to God is, really. Where it can be instant, but it's also if you know you still have to go through this. Like, life's going to bring it up. You're going to have to deal with it, and that's okay. But it really shows you this gap where, wow, okay, so puberty was then, and then I went this many years, and now it's like this return where I saw it, right? Where I could see. Anyways, it's like the man's great journey is you came this way. Even you talk with people that have trauma. What's nuts is young trauma, they still had these moments where they still felt true joy, love, and peace. Like, still, whoa, that the reality that it can exist, you have to accept it, that it's possible. I can choose it then. I can actively do that. That's the gift of humanity, is consciousness. And post puberty is where you learn how to use it, right? You were given this one, it's like your trial run where everything goes right. Right. You know, you do trial of anything, everything's great then. And then you get into the real thing and stuff starts to break down and you got all the stuff. It's, okay, that's fine. Still gets us back. Put it all back together with the real version. Right. That's,
Yeah.
to me, that's what's worth doing.
So what if I'm like, hey, Micah, this sounds incredible. It sounds life-changing. What's like something that I can get, maybe tactical, maybe a frame that I can use when I catch myself thinking a certain thought, or I'm like present in that moment where I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I should, like, what's maybe an exercise or some kind of mental frame that somebody can use as like a primer or step one?
I don't know if you can put a PDF with this thing, but I'll send you one. It's a framework
Okay.
called the MGSHAW framework, MGSHAW. It's one I created for this because I said earlier, the two most important questions you need to answer are who are you and what's actually happening. Now, the MGSHAW framework, what it does, it starts with W, which is willingness, A, acceptance, and SH is self-honesty, right? So if anything in life, you got to be willing to accept self-honesty. That's called washing yourself. If you are willing to accept self-honesty, so you're in the moment, you're freaking out, like the goal is to notice. The fastest thing you can try and do is notice, because if you don't notice it's happening, you can't do anything about it, right? So when it's happening, you're asking yourself, what's actually happening? Am I willing to accept self-honesty? If I am, that creates mindfulness, which is doing something from your heart with all your heart. Doesn't matter what it is, you're just doing it. And gratefulness, life's happening for you. That's the MG. So you wash yourself to the MG. That now creates the shaw, right? This is where MGShaw comes in because I discovered this backwards. Mindfulness, gratefulness creates self-honesty. You can now see what you need to do. Are you going to accept it? And then are you willing to walk out the steps that create it? So it's this little tool where it washes yourself and then you MGShaw out. So you always know what's going on and you're making choices that aren't in your best, or that are getting you out of your own way. That's the ticket. You're getting in your own way. It's you doing it. If you will accept that 99% of your problems you're creating, you win. You win.
Yeah. And I love, again, the golf analogy where you're not out here trying to feel 110% out of 100 every single day in terms of happiness. You're catching yourself in these moments of downward spirals and you're avoiding mistakes, right? Just like in golf, you're avoiding this mistake or this feeling that you're feeling or this bad thing that happened to you into spiraling into becoming a bigger thing than it really needs to be.
Exactly.
And so you're taking that power back and you're like, no, I have the power. I'm empowering myself to make these choices and how I go about this. And I love that framework. We'll definitely include it in the show notes and I'll get that from you. But I love that framework of like an action. Hold up. I'm feeling this way. Boom. This is what I got to do.
Yep. And you take it to the golf course. I hit a bad drive. It's instantly going to send emotion through your body. You can't help it. That's why it's so beautiful. Now what? Because you got a chance. You can tell yourself, oh, that's silly. Or you can buy it. You start going into swing thoughts, right? Reminding yourself of the truth over and over again is not helpful either. We love to beat ourselves up with it. That's why it's so hard to notice, because what your brain's feeding you, it's not that it's not true. It's just a version of the truth. You get to pick another one, right? And if you don't, you're going to hit the next bad shot and then the story continues. And once you hit 6 or 7 shots bad in a row, that story to recover from usually ends in about fucking 12 Coors Lights, right? Like that's where it ends from, because you now believe that you don't know how to play golf. I've broken 2 clubs. This is the stupidest shit in the world. Life will push you to that same brink somewhere else. And it's beautiful. Like, that's the thing. It's good it did it.
I love it, man. Well, what's maybe one final thought? Where can people find out more about you if they want to have some sessions with you, if they want to uncover, if they don't even maybe know what their true potential is with this? How do they get in contact with you? And what's kind of some final thoughts that you have for how someone should reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So go to my website, thecollectiveflow.com. I'm sure you'll get the link to. There's a coaching tab, send me a message. We'll meet together, figure out if it's a good fit or not. That's my first thing. I'm going to give you double barrels up front. If it's good, we go. If it's not, we don't go. No matter what, I bless you in your life. Like it'll be worth it, I promise. But that's how that starts. There's a lot of articles on there. So if you don't feel like you're ready for a call yet, but you want to read more about what I do, articles tab, there's pages and pages of them. I've been doing this for a while. Facebook's the other one. Most active on Facebook. You can follow me on there. I try to give away as much as I can.
Love it, man. What's a final piece of wisdom or thought in all your years doing this and everything you've been through and what you learned about yourself you want to leave the audience with?
You don't have to fight with it. Life is not a struggle. It's a flow. It's learning how to flow with it. When you realize that, now you're in alignment.
Love that. Mic drop moment, man. I really appreciate your time today, Micah, and I got a lot out of this episode. In fact, I feel really, really good just talking to you about that stuff right now. So I hope the listeners feel the same way. Because as we're going through that, I'm like, oh yeah, yesterday I did that thing, and last week I was a little bitch about this thing that didn't really matter, and like, so I hope the listeners feel the same way, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.